Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for finding your way to this presentation. I'm Lori Healy, and I'm going to be sharing some perspectives regarding my own journey with my sibling through various stages of substance use disorder and treatment. And I hope what I have to share is helpful. I hope that you walk away with a better sense of how you are really on your own journey as it relates to recovery and family recovery. And so let's go through this together. I do have a few slides that I want to share with you, so I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller, put myself in the upper right-hand corner so that we can go through these. So I love what this quote says, because sibling relationships really are unique. They share a common social, cultural, and genetic heritage that often reaches into old age. And isn't that the truth? I mean, if you think about it, we are inextricably linked from birth, really. And our sibling relationships are probably the ones that are the longest ones that we're going to have in life, even more than our parents, right? So whether you have, one sibling or many siblings, they're all going to be different and they're all going to be unique. So this presentation itself, I am speaking from a sibling point of view, so I think it's really good for brothers and sisters, but I think it can be good for anyone within the family. So if you're a parent and you want a better or different perspective on what the journey of substance use disorder looks like from a sibling perspective, I would encourage you to listen into this as well. So since we're talking about siblings, I thought I would share a little bit about me. So I am the firstborn. I am the oldest of three siblings. That's me there on the right. Brian, my brother, there on the left, who's the middle child. And then Jackie, who's the youngest, I already switched to the middle. So anyway, we all grew up together in the Midwest. Mom and dad still married, pretty, not that any family is normal, but a pretty normal upbringing. We were the best of friends and the worst of friends, as brothers and sisters usually are. But all in all, we really did enjoy sharing one another's company as we grew up. I am also a mom to a 10-year-old boy. We live here in Minnesota, and so over the past few months, we've definitely had our share of snow. So we spent a lot of time outdoors. We love to go snowshoeing and build snow forts. And then, of course, in the summertime, we love the lakes. And then I'm also an aspiring minimalist. So a couple of years ago, I was one of those people that felt like I had too many things, too many knickknacks, too many clothes, too many odd kitchen trinkets that didn't really do more than one thing. And so just started to pare down those things in my life. But that's actually really transitioned into more about now, how do I spend my time? And how do I say no to things that don't mean as much so I can say yes to the things that do mean more, such as presentations like this. So that will be an ongoing journey, but that's just something that I enjoy doing and I enjoy focusing on. So the first time that addiction really started to take hold of our family, I was in high school, probably a senior, so I was getting away to go to college, and my brother was starting to get involved with substances. And at the time, I don't know, I didn't really understand it or think much of it, and thought, well, I guess my parents will deal with this, and we'll get it figured out. And then at that point, I went away to college. So I had this geographical distance between where I was and what was happening at home, and did not have a front row view to the struggles that were unfolding at that time. And I think my parents, had the best of intentions of kind of keeping that at bay for me and making sure I was focused on my study. But it continued, and it continued to go deeper and deeper into our family over the years to come. And that's really when I think certain roles started developing within our family. What happens is when a family starts to enter dysfunction, we start to take on roles so that we can cope with behaviors that we didn't necessarily ever have to deal with before. Because when we're in those relationships with people we love, we're emotionally hooked on them. And so we need to be able to keep moving ahead and figure this out. I also think this can be exhibited at different stages within our families. Obviously, young children and young siblings might be dealing with it if they have an older sibling. And then, of course, as adults, We have siblings that develop substance use disorder that can sometimes continue on throughout many decades. And so this is a lifelong disease that our loved ones are dealing with. And because of that, it's also a lifelong family disease that we're all dealing with. So, the other thing I think that happens within families, and you hear this a lot, is this whole concept of tough love, right? Or detach with love. And I don't personally agree with that. I think that that almost can sometimes be easier to do, to kind of turn away from the situation and wash your hands of it. I believe, and what I'll talk about in this presentation, is that we need to come alongside our siblings with love and compassion and understanding. And I know that is much easier said than done, but I wanted to offer up a few recommendations of how we can try to do that. So I'd like to step through a few roles. You may have heard about these roles before that start to develop within families. There's a lot of research out there that's been done. I am by no means an expert on these topics, but there's a lot of great organizations out there where you can go and find more information. The information that I'm going to be talking about is information that I've pulled from a website called New England Recovery and Wellness. The first role is that of the dependent, or from our perspective, this is our sibling. This is our sibling who is struggling with a substance use disorder. And as they fall further and further into their substance use, they really start to become the focal point for the family. And it really starts to alter the course of our families, as I'm sure some of you have seen. Now, I think what happens is that family members all are going to adapt differently based on who we are, based on our beliefs, based on our role within the family, perhaps even based on our age. And so different examples of this could be the family members that come to the rescue of their sibling, right, who bail them out of a tough situation, or maybe even hide the behavior from other members of the families. And then other family members might completely cut off communication because they feel that that's the best way to deal with their siblings' behavior. So it's going to be different for everybody. But the thing that stays constant is that the entire family dynamic is going to change, whether that's willingly or unwillingly. So the first role after the dependent that I wanted to take a look at is known as the caretaker, or the enabler. And the enabler is somebody who allows the addiction to continue, okay? What's happened to my slide here? Sorry about that, there we go. So common behaviors emerge from the caretaker, right? They will sometimes make a lot of excuses for that person, or they'll maybe hide what's really going on with the person. So they tend to look after that dependent. They tend to want them to be okay. They're constantly checking in on them. Like I said, they'll make excuses for them. So it could be something like, oh my goodness, making excuses for why they didn't show up to something, or making excuses for why themselves were late. There's a number of different things here. They also suffer from codependency, which can be really difficult on them as well. Often this person can be somebody who in the family, it's usually a parent, but it can often be a sibling, especially if those siblings maybe are close in age to one another and they've grown up doing a lot of similar things together. They're each other's best friends. And then they can often facilitate and encourage other dysfunctional roles in their role as the caretaker. But these people also blame themselves for a lot. And one of the things that they're also trying to do is just really keep the family together. And this is the best way that they know how. This next one is known as the hero. So the hero is somebody who has a high need for achievement. They are the ones that are tasked with bringing esteem to the family. So when something's going wrong, the way that they feel like they need to respond is to go out and do something really good so that there's positivity happening within the family. So for a younger child, this may look something like, oh, they're taking on an extra shift at work, or they're getting involved in extracurricular activities. This is a person who's trying to keep together like the perfect family, raising their children in spite of what's happening in their nuclear family. But all of this really causes a lot of internal strife and high stress levels for them. They're always, always trying to achieve. And then when things fall apart within the family, they feel guilty and a lot of shame as if it's their fault. Now, one thing's for certain is that all of the roles that I'm going through here, everybody has a commonality in that they want this person to get better. But sometimes you wouldn't know it with this role of the mascot, because what they're doing is they're joking about the situation a lot, and they're trying to provide a diversion from what's happening within the family. So that sense of humor is what they act on as a way to distract from what's really going on within the family. The danger here is that a lot of people can see this as very insensitive, and it can often backfire. And so when that happens, the mascot gets stressed about that. And then what happens is they amp it up even more. So this is an individual who really has a hard time coping with their own emotions. And the only way that they can really do this is through humor. The scapegoat is somebody similar to things that the enabler does, but they're trying to draw attention away from the person with the substance use disorder. They're protecting that person. They're also making excuses for them. But what happens within the family is the scapegoat will be wrongly accused of doing things. For example, the family might say, well, why didn't you tell us about that sooner? Or how come we didn't know about that? And making this person feel like they're to blame for the dependent's behavior. And this can often lead to frequent feelings of self-loathing. And the final one would be around the lost child. So the lost child, while all of these other roles are characterized by action, the lost child is characterized by inaction, because their ultimate goal is just to keep everything kind of calm. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to draw any unnecessary attention to them. And what happens, just like their title implies, is that they really do become lost within the family. Their needs are neglected because so much attention is being put on that of the dependent. And so they grow up feeling ostracized. They grow up feeling lonely, and just like they can't live up to anything within the family, which can be very harmful for future relationships for them down the road. So now that we've gone through these 5 roles, I just want you to kind of think about each of them. Again, they were the caretaker, the enabler, the hero, the mascot, the scapegoat, and the lost child. And again, you can research any of these online to find out quite a bit more about each of them. I just really skimmed the surface of them. But I want you to think if any of these behaviors characterize maybe yourself or maybe somebody else in your family. And the reason I ask that is because once you start to identify maybe who you represent or who others in your family represent, this can be a really powerful place from which to have some discussions. This is generally where you could start to see a turning point in the way that your family addresses the addiction within your family. And the reason why is because when one person starts to change in the family unit, that affects change throughout the entire family. And I read something that really illustrated this well for me. If you think about one of those hanging mobiles over like a baby's crib, and you touch one of the pieces, the whole thing kind of starts to move, right? In concert with one another, all in different ways. But eventually it comes back to a state of balance. And so the whole thing there is that every part has to adjust, right, at some point. So just be thinking about that. And as a way for you to move forward, sometimes you have to start identifying those roles within your own family, okay? And I think one thing too rings true for us as a family unit, and especially as siblings, is that we all want our sibling to get better. We can't make them get better. We can't make them do anything. But we as siblings, we can educate ourselves. But when we're not educated, or if our feelings aren't validated, and if we don't get the help we need, we are going to be dysfunctional as well. We're going to stay in those roles, and we need to be able to move forward in a healthy and productive manner. Some of these words up here, I think, are a lot of what our siblings experience when they're struggling with this disease. Burden, fear, embarrassment, helplessness, hopeless. I've had a lot of discussions with my brother in the past in terms of how he was feeling, and it represented a lot of this. And not surprising, I think everybody in our family was feeling those same things, just for different reasons. And so it's really important to figure out, how can I, as a sibling, move from here into a place that is going to be not helpful for just myself, but helpful for my sibling as well. So without education, these emotions take over and they show up in our family. So what can we do as a family, right? Well, first of all, I wanted to say too about those feelings. It's very normal. You're not alone. In order to understand the disease of our sibling and what their experience, we need to understand what they're going through. And that's what this whole area of family recovery is about. Because through education and healing, you're going to be able to better have conversations with your sibling and hopefully get back to a place that is more healthy for you and in turn healthy for them. So here's what I would do. I would encourage your family to try and figure out a way that you are going to start dealing with this. Again, this can be really, really tough. These discussions are hard to have, and you need to come from a place of vulnerability. But maybe it's starting by talking to just one of your other siblings, or maybe it's sitting down with a parent or a grandparent or somebody that you feel closest to in your family that can help you start to unpack some of these feelings that you have. Because I think the more that you can bring the family into it and understand that there is a supportive network here to help you, the better it's going to be for your entire family overall. And you might find that some of the people in your family are shouldering more than their fair share of what they should be shouldering. And maybe that's even you. Maybe you just need the opportunity to unpack some of that onto somebody else and have them help you figure it out. Right? I think that's really important. So, part of this too is just you as a family getting that, what some people say, dirty secret out of the closet. A lot of families hide addiction because they're too embarrassed to talk about it. Since I've been talking more openly about this in our family, it's amazing that the conversations that open up, sheer strangers start sharing with me the issues of addiction that they have in their family. So a lot of people connect over brokenness. And addiction is one of those things that actually, the more we bring it out into the light, the better that we can do to really shed the stigma around this disease of addiction. So some things you have to ask yourself as a family, first of all, is what is our goal as a family? What are the things that we need to focus on here? Is it something that you're going to do to help your sibling? Is it an intervention that you're going to stage as a family? Is it, hey, let's take the next steps to find out about treatment that may be right for our loved one? There's a number of different things that obviously you would discuss as a family. So that would be the first one, is getting on the same page with what that goal looks like. The other would be is you need to define what's important for you, okay? And what do you need in order to maintain a healthy outlook? What do you need to maintain boundaries? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And what does a healthy relationship look like for you and your sibling? So take some time to define that, because once you can do that, it's going to start moving you from those emotions and feelings of denial and loathing and fear into ones of more understanding and compassion, okay? Again, one of the things I want you to remember is that having a positive mindset about this doesn't mean ignoring the negative, because there is a lot of negative that can come with this and sometimes with those interactions. But what it does mean, being positive, it means overcoming the negative. So there's a big difference between the two. All right. Boundaries. I just mentioned that. It's important to bring this up because it plays a big part in how you are interacting with your sibling. And these are important in any healthy relationship, okay? So Henry McLeod, who's done a lot of work on boundaries, defines boundaries this way. They're defined as the way that we define and maintain our sense of individuality, freedom to make choices, and to guard our own personal integrity, okay? Now you have to remember, we're not at the mercy of our siblings' behavior or problems. And the boundaries that we set for ourselves, they're not selfish, nor should they be used to be selfish, okay? Boundaries are basically about self-control, okay? Because you can't control any other human, no matter how you try. You know, sometimes I want to try and control my 10-year-old, but I can't. He has free will, he has a mind of his own, and he is going to do what he wants. What I have to do is put boundaries in place that are going to determine how I control my behavior and emotions, okay? So remember, boundaries are something you set on yourself and not anybody else, because you don't have that kind of control, all right? And again, these are healthy for any type of relationship, whether that's with a spouse or a partner, an employer, a colleague, any family member. You name a relationship, boundaries are a healthy part of that. Now, when it comes to your sibling, it's worth the time to figure out exactly what your boundaries are with that individual when you are facing situations that perhaps in the past have been really hurtful to you, okay? Your boundaries are going to allow you to have that freedom to respond and to make choices and to limit the ways in which your sibling's behavior affects you, okay? And remember, you don't have to be a victim of what he or she has done to you in the past or in the present. Now, different examples of boundaries. I wish I could open up the airwaves right now and have everybody share around this, because there's so many and there's so different ones. So I'll use my own example in terms of a sibling boundary in terms of substance use. So one of the rules in our house was, if you are welcome to come over to our house and we would love to have you in our house, but your substance use is not allowed. If that does happen, you will be expected to leave. You will be asked to leave. So again, these can be kind of hard lines to draw in the sand at first, but just remember, you need to do this for your own sanity and your own self-control. And it's better to do it ahead of time before this, rather than when the situation is right in front of you. Another one could be, financially. I hear from a lot of people, my siblings are always asking me for money. I don't want to give them money. I don't know how they're going to use it, but I want to help them out. So one of the ways you could say is, okay, I'm willing to give you financial support, but I will determine how the money is used within what needs to be paid. So if there's a bill that I can help pay for you, or if there are groceries that need to be bought, a meal that needs to be purchased, please let me help with that. And so that's another way that you could establish your boundaries. Again, these are very individualistic, so you need to determine where you need to set those. So think back to some difficult situations that you've had in the past with your sibling and determine how you could what does that boundary look like so you can move forward in a more healthy manner. And this is good both for yourself as well as for your sibling. It kind of resets the expectation. All right, I've talked a lot about roles, emotions, and boundaries, but the other thing I want to talk about is compassion, okay? Above all, I want to talk about compassion in a way to engage our siblings in an effective and meaningful way, okay? So get rid of that tough love approach and open up yourself to a way that allows you to lead with love. Again, I know this can be really difficult. A lot of those conversations that I've had in the past have been really tough and really painful, and emotions flare. So this is something you're going to have to work on. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like exercise. If you want to be healthier and you want to be more fit, you're going to have to go to the gym every single day and eat healthy. And so these are going to maybe be discussions that you practice with yourself in the mirror, right? I know it sounds funny, but it's not going to happen overnight. But I do believe that the more we can practice compassion and love, the better equipped and the more healthy that we're going to be as a sibling to come alongside our brothers and sisters. All right. So with that, let us step into some tips that I want to share, okay? The first one is ask, don't avoid. And I think that this one is important because one of the things that I've seen play out in my own family is the concept of denial, right? It's just like, it's not happening. Things are getting better. I don't want to get into it with them right now. And that just doesn't lead to a very healthy place. So I think that by engaging in those conversations with your sibling to find out what's going on in their life is going to give you a better understanding of where they're at. And this does not have to be complex. This could be simple as, how can I best help you this week? Are there things that you're struggling with that might be useful for me to help you with? Or how about their job? Sometimes this can be an area, especially when individuals are struggling with substance use disorder. They're not showing up for work. They're showing up late. They're not keeping a job. Maybe that is something where you're really strong in. So maybe you can come alongside them and find out how their job is going. Or is there anything I can help you do on this front? Do you want me to take a look at your resume? Or gosh, what type of jobs are you looking for right now? Is there anywhere I can help you in that area? So think about what questions too you might have for others in your family, right? Asking questions of your parents, things that you don't understand why they're treating your sibling the way that you're treating. This is really common in a lot of families. In fact, I've talked to some other siblings about this, and I've asked other siblings outright, like, do you ever get mad at your parents for the way that they've been treating your brother and sister or enabling them? And you would not believe the responses I get. Siblings get really upset about this. I think now as a parent, I can understand that and empathize with how my parents possibly enabled my brother in the past. But boy, that's a tough one. I think we as siblings, it can be easier for us to keep a distance maybe sometimes than our parents. But I would really encourage you to have those conversations with your parents to understand what's important to them and how they're trying to deal with their child who has a substance use disorder. The one thing that I do want to caution on this whole thing of ask somebody is when you have a sibling in recovery. And this can be kind of a sensitive topic for us as siblings, because I think when a sibling has entered the stages of recovery and people are getting better, you're so scared that they're going to fall back into active addiction. And so you want to have this tendency to say, like, did you go to your meetings? Are you, who's your sponsor? How is that going? What's your next meeting? What are you supposed to be doing? Like, you have to give them some space. And the reason being is it's your sibling's responsibility for their sobriety. It's not your responsibility. As much as you love them and as much as you care for them, you have to let them work through their plan. I think it's absolutely acceptable to be checking in with them to say, hey, how are you doing? Or just, hey, I'm thinking about you. Is there anything you need? What do you need from me right now? I think that's the best way to approach it, rather than taking more of almost a nagging approach or making sure they're on the right path. Again, it's their responsibility and not yours. So I just kind of wanted to caution against that. So decide on one thing you can bond over. And again, I know this can be difficult, especially if the stage of your relationship is really rocky right now. But again, go back to that original quote that I shared with you, and remember how linked we are from the very beginning and the special bonds that we share as siblings. I believe that given our shared experiences in the past, you can find one thing, right? Maybe it's as simple as you love playing video games together. Maybe you spent a lot of time growing up in front of the TV playing Pac-Man or something. Or maybe it's watching movies. Baking, making things from your childhood that bring back fun memories can be another one. It could be just sharing, a really great meal. Maybe you like to find the best taco joints in your part of town. I don't know, whatever it is, see if there's one thing that you can establish your relation on. Just the act of kind of getting together and spending time together so that you can build that bond and build that time of community that will hopefully take you into back into a deeper relationship with them. So it may cause you to have to go back to your childhood and think about what you used to love to do as kids, right? I've read somewhere that between the ages of 6 and 16 are the formidable years where we find what we're really good at or things that we really enjoy. So have some fun and think back to that time of your childhood and how you used to spend time with your sibling. Now, I know in some cases, discussions aren't even happening between you and your sibling. Communication has absolutely broken down. And in some cases, you don't even know where your sibling is, okay? But even in spite of that, I still really believe that you can continue to maintain a relationship with them. It sounds silly, but the memories of them can evoke really powerful emotions within you that can help you heal. And again, remember, this is sibling recovery. This is for you. This is ways for you to deal with a substance use disorder that is impacting your family, okay? Their disease does not define them, right? It's the disease that you're struggling with, and you have to detach that from the person that they are and the person that you love as a sibling. So find a memoir that you've maybe held on to. Okay, maybe it's a gift that they gave you, or it's a silly photo of you. A text or a voicemail is a really great thing to be able to refer to or look at. For me, it was a postcard. My brother sent me a postcard on one of his travels, and just even seeing his writing evokes powerful emotion. So try to find those things that you can put in a place that you can revisit from time to time and just kind of see what that does for you. There's also some really powerful movements around the country around art, where people are taking artifacts from their siblings' life, things that they've been given, or again, photos and things like that, and creating collages and montages as a way to help them remember the positive and the good things about their sibling. All right, this next one. This one is a little bit more action related. So defining one thing that you can do either today or this week or this month. You can pick one or pick all three. Again, this action of doing this is supposed to propel you into getting to a place where you feel like you've accomplished something in a positive manner within your relationship. And again, as I talked about before, trying to get to a place of love and compassion and understanding. You may not know love is actually, it's not a feeling, okay? It's an action that we take that then evokes emotion. Because sometimes we don't even feel like loving that other person, right? We want to withhold it as a form of punishment. But again, this journey is moving you from a place of resentment and anger into one of clarity and encouragement for yourself. So these can be little things. Again, these don't have to be difficult. So today, maybe you're just going to start with a simple meditation or a simple prayer around this issue. Maybe this week you are going to decide, hey, I'm going to get together with my sibling's daughter and take her out for ice cream. That could be something that you can do as a way of keeping that connection. Maybe a bigger goal for the month would be, okay, you know what, it's time to have this family meeting. It's time to talk about some of these roles. It's time to talk about getting on the same page and figuring out what our goals are as a family. So again, pick one or pick all three. Again, it will be largely dependent on where your sibling currently is at within their journey, right? And again, remember to be clear on your boundaries. If you decide that, hey, I'm going to call my sibling, I'm going to have that difficult discussion that I've been meaning to have with them. If it gets into a situation and it's not headed in a positive place, maybe they start shaming you or disrespecting you, remember those boundaries, exercise it, and remember you just have to be okay with that, okay? And it doesn't have to be something that engages directly with your sibling, but something that is somehow related to that journey that you're on. All right, keeping a family journal and traditions. So some families have a really hard time talking, right? Would you agree that, you start down the conversation and within 2 minutes you're in a fight? So a lot of families do a better job of emailing and texting. So this family journal could be any of those. Maybe you have a shared Google Doc, or maybe there's an email that you send out weekly as a way to stay in touch and keep updated. It's just a very purposeful way of keeping information flowing and depending on one another for strength and support. One family that I know, they actually send out an email in the subject line. It's always just update, right? You can make it anything you want, but theirs is update. And so when the family members see that in their inbox, they know that that has a very specific message tied to it. And it's just a way for them to stay in touch. I think the other thing that's really important is traditions. And if you think back on your family childhood about all the traditions that probably define your family, things like how you celebrate birthdays, or maybe there's a silly thing that you do around the holidays. Maybe you went to the same vacation spot every June. Whatever that is, those traditions really bond us. And I love what this author, Meg Cox, says. She wrote this book called The Book of New Family Traditions. And she defines family ritual as any activity you purposefully repeat together as a family that includes heightened attentiveness and something extra that lifts it above the ordinary ruts. So in other words, traditions, when done right, lend a certain magic and spirit to our everyday lives. So when we as a family are going through kind of the darker days, sometimes we forget those ties that hold our family together. And even substance use disorder can have a way of threatening those very, very core family traditions. So just think about what those traditions are within your family. Maybe this is something that you talk about and figure out a way that you can keep those alive, because I do believe those are really important for the people in our family. And they help us stay attached to what's important and in a way help us feel really loved. This next one is commit to lifelong learning around this topic. Again, like I said, this is a journey. This is something that you will be dealing with for the rest of your life if you choose that. And I strongly encourage you to do that. So you're already doing it. You're listening to this presentation. And again, thank you very much. And hopefully you're going to be tapping into all those other great presentations that are part of this family recovery conference. I would encourage you to check out resources within your own community. Obviously, resources online. There's a lot of great podcasts out there on the topic of substance use disorder and recovery. In fact, I've got a ton of them that I'd love to share with you at the end of this presentation. I've included my contact information, so please reach out if you're looking for more of those. Talking to people that have experience and education in this area. So seeing a therapist, I think, is a great way for you to commit to lifelong learning. See a therapist that has expertise in substance use disorder, and you'll probably learn a lot about your sibling, and they can really maybe help you unpack a lot of what has happened in your family and where you're at. So there's many different ways to get help out there. And again, I'm just so glad that you're here listening to this today. And on that last note, like I just said, you get help for you too. This is really important. Just like anybody who is struggling with substance use disorder, they should never have to shoulder that alone. And as a sibling, you should never have to shoulder that alone as well. So just make sure that you're taking good care of yourself. So all of these things that I've shared are really in the spirit of trying to look positively at a situation that can, I know, be just heartbreaking and really hard to bear. With my own brother, unfortunately, we lost him to a heroin overdose in October of 2017. And so we're still grappling with that as a family. But I believe that there's a lot of hope out there for families. That's just one story. There are so many stories out there around recovery and healing. And I believe, as my family believes, that the best thing that we can do is come alongside people that are on this journey right now and help them understand the importance of strong family connections and why family recovery is so important. And so the reason I put this slide up there and that saying of all we have is now is because it's important to move forward with a focus on the future, right? It's really easy to live in past regrets. It's easy to question our past motives and the decisions that we made, but none of that matters. What matters right now is that you're focused on the here and now, and you're moving yourself forward in a healthy relationship right alongside your sibling. And that is really powerful in what needs to happen, okay? So again, I would just encourage you to take those steps that you need to take. Reach out to others that can help you. Please do listen to all these other presentations. I think they're going to be great. I would love to hear from you. Again, this is just one perspective. This is my story. But I've really found that as I've been able to open up about my own journey and how I've been able to come alongside others, it's been really helpful. So please reach out to me by email or tweet at me. I would love to hear from you. And again, I just really thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here, and I wish you all the best in your journey. Thank you.